The special prosecutor announces arrest of several individuals, including 2 former commissioners of the GRA over the controversial SML contract, which has now become a subject of criminal investigations.
Also to come, Public Utility Regulatory Commission announces a 2.5% increase in electricity tariff meant to help service purchase liquid fuel and offset its debts.
A lot later, building collapse in Cape Coast results in the death of 1 and injury to 2 others. We're live there with details if you stay with us.
It's News Central live on TV3. I am Kemini Amano.
And I am Mawina Egbeta. The bulletin starts right now.
Now, the Office of the Special Prosecutor has arrested Reverend Dr. Amishadai Owusu-Amwa, the former Commissioner General of the GRA, Isaac Krensel, also another commissioner, former commissioner of the Customs and now General Manager at SML, and Christian Tetesoti, former technical advisor and now MD of SML. The arrests are linked to ongoing investigations into suspected corruption and corruption-related offences in respect of contracts between the GRA and SML for revenue assurance services. The probe also seeks to verify SML's claims that its services have been saving the nation significant revenue. Owusu-Amwa, Krensel and Soti were detained last night after failing to meet bail conditions. Let's have a quick chat with Chief Crusader of the Crusaders Against Corruption, Emmanuel Wilson Jr. Emmanuel, good afternoon to you and thank you for your time here. What do you make of these arrests and the posturing of the OSP so far?
Well, thank you for having me. And first and foremost, to say that if you are fighting corruption, it is important to investigate. And after the investigation, if you think you have any grounds, it's very important. Even though as part of the investigation, it's important to invite suspects to aid in investigation. And so ordinarily, everyone will say that what the OSP has done, as long as he believes he has enough grounding to pursue further investigation, I don't think he has done anything contrary to the law. The only difficulty that some of us will have has to do with the history of the OSP, that he has communicated to us strongly that anytime he pursues a case, he is unable to bring it to a satisfactory conclusion. And so we are wondering that this that he has suffered, whether or not we are going to get to the latter of it to the satisfaction of everyone as far as the fight against corruption is concerned. The only thing we can say is that we believe and hope that this time round, he will be able to erase that perception that his history has provided to all of us, that he's not really able to fight corruption to the latter. We are hoping that this case will be, it will turn out to be a bit different from what he has been doing over the past period.
But let's look at the persons of interest in this latest move by the OSP or the Special Prosecutor. We have a former GRA boss. We also have a former commissioner of customs. Some have said that this is curious. What do you think about these?
In fact, it is really serious. And the little that I have gathered from this investigation so far brings about, a purported conflict of interest. And that is one key thing that affects us as a country anytime matters of corruption comes up. When you have someone using his or her office for his or her personal gain, put yourself in a certain situation where instead of protecting the interest of the state, you are seen to be rather protecting your personal interest. And that makes it very serious. And so listening and looking at the individuals mentioned who have been, reportedly suggesting or that they are part of this whole scheme, it is worrying. And that is the reason why, personally, I would have wished that this would have been handled by any other agency other than the Office of the Special Prosecutor. But now that the Office of the Special Prosecutor has taken the steps to go into this investigation, I am really hoping and believing that we will get to the conclusion of this matter, because matters of conflict of interest, and as you rightly said, with these individuals involved, these are individuals who have been heading Ghana Revenue Authority. It is not a child's play institution. So if you are heading it and you are also seen to be putting yourself at a position where it raises an issue of conflict of interest, I think clearly this is not a case that we should downplay.
I see. Let's go over the list of persons of interest in this case. The OSP is following at this time. We know that there is the CEO, Emmanuel Eduse. If we could look at that quickly. We've also talked about Reverend Dr. Amisha Dai, who is the former boss of the GRA. And then we talked also about the former Customs Commissioner as well. There's one more person on the list of persons of interest for the OSP. Now, remember that these people were former government officials or are former government officials, and now we know them as executives of SML as well. Let's go through that list again.
It is really disheartening. Honestly, it is really, really disheartening. I think it is time for us to start probing. Let us find out exactly the actual owners, the one or the individuals who own SML. I think we should get to that stage, not just the directors. Let's look at those who are, let's unveil the company, and let's find out the individuals who are really behind it. I think, and I'm suspecting, that those who actually own SML are individuals that, if you are able to unveil, it will help in the investigations that we are having as it stands now. These individuals that have been mentioned, the names you just mentioned, they may just be directors. Directors doesn't necessarily mean that they are the owners or the shareholders. And so I will wish that this investigation proceeds further for us to know the actual owner or actual owners of SML. That will help us very much in the investigation.
I see. But, you have also raised reservations about the capability of the OSP seeing this to a finish. What would you like to see in order to give you that confidence that perhaps this will get to a finish line?
The OSP, one thing the OSP has failed to do over the past period, whether deliberate or out of incompetence, only God knows, is the fact that he has always been rushing to court without enough grounding or evidence. And that ends up messing up the whole case. And so the case always does not end the way the average person expects it to end, particularly as we want to fight corruption and deter others from engaging in it. And so what is expected is that this particular case, if indeed the OSP is committed to ensuring that we are fighting corruption, which should be so because that is the reason why we are paying him, it is expected that the OSP would do the necessary relevant investigations, put the necessary relevant documents together before he decides to seek attention from the court. If he's not able to put himself in that position, I will encourage him, even if it's going to take 10 years for him to put all this necessary information together, he should do that before he rushes to court. If not, and he takes the same posture as he's been doing in the various cases, rushing cases to court without having enough evidence for the court to make their determinant, then we will end up having the same old story as we've been having. And that will not augur well for us.
Very well. Emmanuel, we'll leave it here. Thank you so much for talking to us. Emmanuel Wilson is an anti-corruption campaigner. And we've been discussing the arrest made by the OSP, two former Commissioner Generals of the GRA, Reverend Dr. Amishadai Owusu Amwa and Kofi Inti, an ex-Commissioner of Customs and now GM or General Manager at SML, Isaac Krenzel, also the MD of SML, and Christian Tetesoti, CEO of SML, and Evans Eduse, as well as two others, are persons of interest in that SML scandal that broke out, broke out indeed, in the last administration.
Let's move away from that and be prepared to pay 2.5% more for your electricity starting from July 1 this year, following a review of utility tariffs by the PURC. The decision to increase tariffs comes on the back of the cedi gaining significantly against the US dollar, raising hopes of a possible drop in tariff, particularly of electricity, to cushion consumers. But according to the Public Utility Regulatory Commission, an outstanding debt of some 400 million cedis plus cost of liquid fuel and the cost of reserve capacity have forced the increase to come about. Water, however, has seen no changes. Let's go through the details that's made available by the Public Utility Regulatory Commission. And we know that electricity is what really is dominant. And so we're seeing a 2.45% increase being rounded up by a lot of people to 2.5%. And the factors for that increase, we're seeing for the first time the inclusion of the 27% of the cost of alternative fuels such as distillate fuel oil, heavy fuel oil, and light crude oil into the cost build-up for electricity. And it's important that this is mentioned. Remember that 1 cedi levy included on the energy sector recovery levy on fuel price build-up now suspended. The government explains that that was to cater for the purchase of these fuels to ensure electricity generation does not suffer. But we're now seeing a part of it being factored into the cost build-up for electricity. Then also, PURC tells us that there's the inclusion of reserve capacity for grid stability and reliability. Again, analysts are already making the argument that the factors for the cost build-up is shifting. But let's bring you a bit more on what PURC says is accounting for this. Then there is the inclusion of outstanding debt of some 488 million cedis carried over from the previous 3 quarters. And so the reason why you're seeing this increase as well is to offset some of this debt. We know that the weighted average cost of gas currently stands at $7.7 US, increasing slightly by just 1% thereabout in the second quarter review of 2025. But most significantly, what many of you were expecting would result in some decrease in the electricity tariff was this. The performance of the cedi down from 15.69 to 10.30. This as well, perhaps, is why we're not going to be paying so much more. We know that water is remaining the same. There are no changes with regards to that, no price change when it comes to water. Let's take you over the phone lines and engage the PURC, the Director of Research and Corporate Affairs at the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, Dr. Eric Obute, who's joined us via the telephone lines. Mr. Obute, I appreciate you speaking to us. Quite simply, many will not be happy because the cedi has performed creditably. The question is, why are Ghanaians being asked to pay more for the electricity? The argument is being made that the factors which contribute to the price build-up is changing. Why is the PURC changing it?
It's not the case that the factors that are constituting the cost build-up are changing. But the fact is that the previous quarter, for instance, we had an outstanding debt of 976 million cedis. And we said in the previous quarter that we're going to absorb 50% of that cost in that tariff, which we did. So the other 50% we promised and we said we would roll it over into the next quarters. And the other 50% is 488 million cedis, which we are trying to recoup in this particular quarter. And we have also made provision for 27% recovery cost for the alternate fuels, namely the light crude oil, the distillate fuel oil, and the heavy fuel oils. And for the stability of the grid and the reliability of the grid, we're also making provision for the reserve margin. Now, if we are not taking all these factors into consideration, and we're only to look at the exchange rate, the inflation, and the cost of the WACC, the weighted average cost of gas, there would have been a decline in tariffs, yes. But because we had an outstanding debt, that debt came to offset the decline of the tariffs. And also because we are making provision for part of the fuels, the liquid fuels which we use to power the thermal plants, that's how come we have this marginal increase of 2.45%.
Let's stay on the fuels, because we know that the government has passed, essentially. We're just waiting for an implementation date, really. A 1 cedi additional levy on fuel price build-up to take care of this fuel purchases. Did the PURC take into consideration that levy which has been passed, which we are awaiting its implementation in the cost build-up? What happens then to that tax as well, which many Ghanaians are anticipated to begin paying?
Well, the 1 cedi levy that we're talking about has not been passed. 2, it is outside the jurisdiction of the PURC. We do not have control over that. It is the Ministry of Energy that has control over that. It's a policy decision by government, which the PURC has no control over. What is within the domain of the PURC is that we decided to take only 27% of that cost to pass it through the tariff, and not the full cost of the fuels. So if you look at the press release, we said we take 27% of that cost.
Right.
The commissioners are mindful of the impact that it will have on the end user payer or the end user consumer. So we are also making sure that we do not pass through the full cost of the fuels, but only a portion of the fuels has been taken account of. So, as I said previously, if we were to take into consideration only the exchange rate,
then we would have seen a decrease. But what happens when that levy kicks in and Ghanaians begin to pay 1 cedi more to take care of the fuel? Will this then be reviewed and removed subsequently in the next quarter?
Well, at this point in time, all I can say is that when we get to that bridge, then we'll cross it. Because at this point in time, I cannot speak to that particular issue. It is not within my jurisdiction to be able to speak to issues which I do not have enough information on.
A similar question will be asked on the debts which we're paying, 488 million cedis. Is it a projection of PURC that within the next quarter, July up until possibly September, when we begin paying again, we should have cleared this 488 million, and that again will not be a part of the price build-up for electricity going forward?
Exactly, that is the expectation, that this particular 488 million will be taken care of in this tariff and will not be part of the tariff that will be given the next quarter. So we do not expect to see any tariff adjustment based on an accumulated debt, because the accumulated debt of 976, we took portion of it in the last tariff window, and we've taken the rest of the 50% in this particular tariff window. So we do not expect to see that debt in the next tariff adjustment.
But would Ghanaians be justified to be disappointed to be paying more when all other things being equal? Almost all commodity prices are falling in terms of transport fares, fuel prices, and the likes, and yet they are seeing their energy bills go up by roughly 2.5%. They're justified in being disappointed, shouldn't they?
Well, as I said to you, we have a debt which is already outstanding, and we made it known to the public the last time we came up with the tariffs. So on that particular score, I don't think a lot more people will be very disappointed. In any case, whatever it is that we have done now, if you take, for instance, lifeliners, the addition that the lifeliner will pay, if you spend 30 units, or let's say 30 kilowatt hours at the end of the month, what you will pay additionally will be 60 pesos. Because currently, the person is paying about 27.28, 27 cities, 28 pesos. So from from 1st July up to onwards, whatever the person will be adding on will be 60 pesos. If you take somebody who claims, let's say, 50 units at the end of the month, the person is now currently paying 103 cities. But from 1st July, the person will be adding on 2 cities, 27 pesos.
Right.
So, yeah. So So that's what would be the addition.
Right then. We'll leave it here. I'm sure we'll come to you again for a bit more on this. But that's Dr. Eric Obute, is the Director of Research and Corporate Affairs at the Public Utility Regulatory Commission, speaking to us as to why you'll be paying 2.45% more on your energy bills.
On Tuesday, June 24th, the Ghana National Fire Service successfully contained a fire outbreak involving multiple wooden structures at the Arts Center located opposite the National Lottery's office here in Accra. Although investigations are still ongoing to determine the exact cause of the fire, a trader has admitted to using a gas cylinder to heat water, which later exploded and started the fire. More than 50 wooden structures used for both commercial and residential purposes were completely destroyed, along with their contents. However, firefighters managed to prevent the fire from spreading to several adjoining structures. A visit to the scene on Wednesday morning showed affected traders salvaging what was left of their belongings. Let's now connect with Joseph Gold Alogbe. He's joining us from the market scene. Joseph, talk to us about what you can report this afternoon. What are the traders doing now?
Kamini, so like you rightly said earlier, they are just trying to see how they can get a little left behind and also get back to life now. But for what would have been another yet disastrous fire outbreak, that was prevented by the Ghana National Fire Service, leading to just about some 50 wooden structures raising to ashes yesterday. So as it stands now, the person who was involved in this, who started all this, owned up saying she was just trying to boil water for her 3-day-old baby, and she forgot herself. The next thing, there was an explosion that led to the fire outbreak yesterday around 6 p.m. thereabout. But fortunately for them, the fire service was very strict in bringing about 5 fire tenders to come to douse and fellow, preventing it escalating into the main market, which would have been a disastrous fire for us to have recorded yesterday, Kamini.
You have been speaking to some of these traders?
Yeah, Kamini, so I've been speaking to some of the traders who lost some of their belongings, and then they actually opened up to say to us that, well, they know the cause of the fire, and they've been warning that people should not use gas cylinder within the enclave because of the wooden structure they use, but they will not listen. That's a few of them. Let's take a listen to them.
Yesterday night, about almost 20 minutes to 7, and we're here, there's a fire here. Some of our members are here to work in the night, and we called the fire service, emergency fire service. They tried, and they came yesterday to help us stop the fire yesterday night.
So we are also hearing that this was caused by a gas cylinder, even though investigations has not completed yet. But the traders here are saying they saw it. They saw someone putting water on fire, and that led to what happened. Yeah. What advice will you give against the use of gas cylinders and cooking within the market? Yeah, it's true. The first person cooking this morning, and we'll meet in the director office, and the one she created the fire problem, we call her and tell us the institution use the gas and the fire. So she confirmed? Yeah, she's confirmed. Say it's a gas with the problem. So I thought you have a policy against using gas cylinder within such volatile environment. Yeah, we don't know. If you close here in the evening time, we go home. If somebody is using the gas, we don't know the person who is using the gas. Is this instance we know say that somebody is using the gas here? How often does the fire service patrol this market to ensure that people do not use gas cylinders and other things? How often do they come here? Oh, they came here several times. I wanted to mention the fire service. Oh, the fire service, they came here already. They advised us nobody should use the gas cylinder here. But some people, if you tell them, they don't take it. You see, because of that, this problem comes. What else would you want to tell us? I'll tell my people that everybody should be careful. Anyone you see somebody is using the gas cylinder here, we should let you know, and we'll call the police.
Just heard from leader of the affected traders, and earlier was Joseph Gold Alogbe, a reporter who returned to the scene of the fire this morning.
Let's take you out of the capital, and a second-story building has collapsed in Cape Coast, killing one person 5 days after a similar incident killed two. The incident happened at about 2 a.m. when occupants were asleep. According to the mayor of Cape Coast, victims got trapped, and it took the intervention of community members and security agencies, including the National Fire Service, NATMO, and the police to rescue victims who were rushed to the hospital. An elderly woman, 74 years, was pronounced dead after a while with one other person, one other victim, a young man, still on admission, receiving treatment. The mayor of Cape Coast, George Justice Arthur, he says that immediate plans have been made to get victims the needed assistance with relief items and shelter. Let's take you there right now, speak to Thomas Khan, it's my colleague in the region, and get details. Thomas, what else can you report to such incidents over the last few days?
So, it's a sad situation. As you rightly said, 3 lives already gone, and this recent one has sparked some kind of fear among residents in Cape Coast. I'm currently at the scene in Mswati, a coastal community in Cape Coast, where the incident occurred. At the moment, we are told that the 74-year-old lady is gone. She passed. But her grandson, who we are told 18-year-old, is still on admission at the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital. And again, occupants of other buildings adjoining to this collapsed building have now been seen packing their stuff out of the house because the assembly and the authorities have come to warn them of the danger in staying in the house. So at the moment, all of them have begun packing their belongings out of the building just to make way for a planned demolition. The assembly, the mayor of Cape Coast, George Justice Arthur, has told them the danger in living in that building. So all of them, all the houses are on that stretch, a dozen of them, and I can count up close to about 6 houses. They have all been earmarked to be pulled down as soon as possible, Mauna. And what is sad is that there are a lot of elderly women among this group of people who have been affected, and they have been wondering where they are going to lay their head. At the moment, I see a lot of them being helped to go and take a seat at one corner for the young ones to be doing the parking, where they say they are packing their belongings to safety. Then wait for the assembly and other authorities to give them a place, a temporary place to keep their stuff. And again, there is some assurance from the assembly. And then a while ago, we saw the Mahin of Ugua's traditional area, Osabari Makwesata himself also coming to the scene to get first-hand information about the situation. And he has also expressed shock and that he's worried about the recent development. And I put the question to him, what he makes of the demolition plan by the assembly. And he said he backs it, but it should be done with caution. And he is advocating that once the demolition exercise began, there should be some kind of plan to also restore some buildings, because Cape Coast, we know, is a tourism site or tourism hub, and some of these buildings represent some kind of heritage. So there will be some plan to get them restored rather than demolishing every building. But again, he was worried about the poor maintenance culture by owners of these properties.
Right. Thomas, let's listen to these individuals that you spoke to, and thank you very much for the reporting as well.
Oh, Omana, Ashishon, Mama Kaide, Majame, Mazama, there, beyond Kanakuman. And some be back, I wish you, Waka and Yamanasam. Nemo more day, young day. Yabo Huban, by Echnabiso. The master may own Cassibio. No, no, soon, I may not more painful. Very good, you know. Most one mum list, and some old day here. And can in Ambo, me and Bissa. abano so biara obobon yambo bon zamanu na wana ho akoma hyehyɛ na hwɛ kwana eba rehabilitate one was na ba no do
you know that then now no can ya or your ancient buildings keep us you nim da or city crook not say your tourism hub about some like catch then no run what them are on my or different especially with regards to maintenance culture yeah wa madam Richards
in fact many nadmo pay na kasa the one call mama on exercise the one year the whole of Cape Coast then adana ya botuni na oh yeah in those days adana was see na that's in with this over the years because he maintained then into wa madan or go and so sorry okay or can I pair na or go from and say my charge one day one could bring na that's then or vulnerable one listening na technical advice one ba
around 2 a.m. I was just caught that another building along the stretch of Ayedan Emisechi is collapsed, and that is Alote Jacob's family house is collapsed and has actually trapped 2 persons, one elderly woman and a young guy. In fact, I saw them myself when they were taken to the hospital, Cape Coast Teaching Hospital. So quickly I came to the scene, called police, called all the security agencies, NADMO and the rest, just to come and look at the situation, the intensity of it. Then after I followed the victim to the hospital, Cape Coast.
You heard some residents of Cape Coast where a second building collapse has claimed the life of 1 person and injured 2 others. We'll turn attention to education now because the Tertiary Education Workers Union of Ghana, TEWGH, has issued a 7-day ultimatum to Ghana Tertiary Education Commission demanding an immediate reversal of its directive mandating traditional public universities from swear in representatives of the Teachers and Education Workers Union, TEWTUC, onto their governing councils. GTEC, in a letter dated June 18th, instructed public universities to recognize and swear in representatives from TEWTUC as the sole workers union on governing councils, effectively barring TEWGH from serving, even where they have already been sworn in. Let's get the latest on this. We'll now speak to National Chairman of TEWU Ghana, Suleimana Abdul Rahman. Good afternoon to you, Suleimana. Have you had any feedback at all since you issued this threat some 24 hours ago?
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me. Yes, so far, since we issued our press statement and then also given 7-day ultimatum, we are yet to have a discussion with the Honorable Minister of Education and then as well the Honorable Minister of Labor Relations. So currently, as we speak, we are at the Ministry of Education to have a meeting with the Honorable Minister. I believe the stakeholders, as far as GTEC is concerned, will be present so we can find a lasting solution to this issue.
I see. Now let's talk about the issue itself. Why is this important? Why is the distinction between TEWGH and TEWTUC and the subsequent representation on the governing council so important?
All right. Thank you so much for this opportunity. So this is what happens. TEWGH is actually a tertiary institution-based union. And TEWTUC, they have their majority members in the pre-tertiary, that is Ghana Education Service. That is where they have their majority members. And I can tell you that the council representation is about the members on the ground of these campuses. And it is a constituency representation. It is not just a name, whereby if your name is not mentioned directly, you are not supposed to be there. So this is what happens. In the public universities, where, we have the majority members as far as TOGH is concerned are as follows. If you go to KNUS, for example, TOGH has 785 members against 123 members for TOGUC. You go to UEW, TOGH has 400 against 10 members. AMSET, for example, TOGH has 161 and TOGUC has none. And the public universities that TOGH doesn't even have a single member. There are about 7 public universities. TOGH has no single member. And GTEC letter is sought to say that even where they don't have a member, they should go and look for someone to go and sit in that council. Where can you find this kind of, thinking? Because we feel that this is very, very unfortunate, and we don't know why and how GTEC got to this conclusion. And let me be quick to add that, look, last week, 19th June 2025, we had a meeting with the Director General with his team. And he told us in the meeting that he was going to invite the 2 unions, that is TOGH and TOTUC, to a meeting on 26th, which is tomorrow, Thursday, so that we can sit down and iron out these issues. We all agreed. He actually issued the invitation letter to us, only for us to receive a letter on Monday afternoon suggesting to say that he has taken a decision, he has made some consultations, and he has taken a decision that TOTUC should represent the members in the council. And even where they don't have a member, they should go and look for someone to go and sit there. Where can you find this kind of directives? And what went behind the scenes before this kind of directives come in? We think that there is something fundamental wrong somewhere, and GTEC director must be called to book. Because what he is doing, there's going to be a lot of agitations on the university campuses, and if care is not taken, it is going to escalate. And we don't want that to happen. This is a new government that has come to power. We don't want to confront this new government with labor issues. We think that they must allow the status quo to remain, because TOGH was fairly represented in this university council without any problem. So TOTUC think that we cannot be there. So we think that they have to call the director to book to make sure that he resolves this matter, or this matter is resolved amicably without any problem. Other than that, there'll be a lot of issues coming up.
Suleimana, we'll leave it here. Thank you so much for talking to us. Suleimana Abdul Rahman is national chairman of TOGH. And we've been talking about some of the grievances with GTEC with regards to representations on governing councils. He tells us that there will be a meeting with the education minister in in moments to come. We'll update you as we get new developments from that meeting. It's still News Central here on TV3. I'm Kemeni Amano. Just before we take a break, you should know when we come back, we've got our eye on the money, or better still on our fuel, as uncertainties continue to grow between Israel and Iran, and the tensions that won't stop piling up between both countries. More when we return.
By that, you know what time it is. It's time for us to bring you By the Numbers. And today we're focusing on a special topic that is of great interest to you, has to do with fuel prices and what it means for your pocket. Because we know the world is currently uncertain about the state of the Israel-Iran conflict, which saw crude oil prices decline slightly following a ceasefire talk initiated by U.S. President Donald Trump. In a surprising turnaround, former President Trump, who previously ordered the bombing of 3 nuclear sites in Iran, has just hours ago expressed displeasure with both Israel and Iran failing to comply with the ceasefire agreement.
Violated us too. Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have 2 countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
And the big question is, what does this mean for global crude oil economy, and more specifically for us here in Ghana? We know that Iran produces about 5% of the world's crude oil and controls the Strait of Hormuz, a vital passage through which around 20% of the global oil supply flows. We know they've threatened to close that route. If the conflict escalates, which the prayer is that it doesn't, it could result in global supply shortfalls and cause crude oil prices to surge. What does this mean for you? Let's take you onto the board right now and begin to have the conversations as to where we are currently, where we've been, and most importantly, the projections which were made, which now many are making the argument that, well, we might be having it quite soft here in Ghana based on recent happenings on the market. And so currently, crude prices on the world market stands at $67.4 US per barrel. Averagely, our petrol prices right now, you're looking at the top players in the downstream petroleum sector, hovering around 11 cedis 45 pesos. When we do the average for diesel as well, 11 cedis 79 pesos. Our currency has been doing the wonders. It's been around the 10 cedis 30 pesos region. That's why it's still standing at 10 cedis 35 pesos. And so currently, this is what it all means. But here's where it's been interesting over the last few weeks and why possibly there were concerns that from July 2, prices could have shot up astronomically based on crude oil prices on the global market. And so we start off with this point here. This is where it all stood at as at somewhere the 26th of May of this year. Global prices really have averaged 60 regions in terms of crude prices on the world market. 60 regions in terms of $60 per barrel regions for crude prices. But we saw all of that go up when the war started. The prices began to shoot up as of the 10th of this month, June. We saw it rise from $64 to $68 per barrel. The escalations continued, went up to 69, and then it went as high as what? $81.4 US per barrel, which then began to lead to the conversations as to what possibly it could mean for pump prices for you and I here in Ghana. In fact, one of the reasons why the government's very much controversial 1 cedi levy on fuel prices was as well suspended. But where are we currently? From 81, we've seen it drop back to 66.8. pretty much the pre-conflict levels before all of the Iran-Israel war could start and all of that. But let's try and expand the conversation and tell you why possibly the argument was being made that once prices were going up on the global market, then you could be paying more. And this is what the price composition of what you pay at the pump looks like. And so the import cost really takes a huge chunk of it, about 8 cedis, 59 pesos, roughly 72% of what you pay for at the pump is as a result of how the world market is determining prices, what the dollar and then the city is also doing in terms of how much they're able to get it and all of that. That constitutes about 72% of it all. And so roughly based on the averages we've been doing, that should be costing you around 8 cedis, 59 pesos. From there, taxes come up next, constituting some 23% of the price buildup. And then regulatory margins, fuel market margin and the likes come in to factor in. And so the argument simply was that when the prices on the global market, which reached 81 and the likes, and as at the time when Israel was, oh no, not Israel, Iran was contemplating closing that critical route, then the projections were being made that we could be seeing crude prices go for $130 per barrel. Then this part of the composition of what you pay at the pump would have gone up astronomically, and then you'll be paying a lot more. But we know that a lot has changed since then, and so we're going to do a bit of forecasting for you right now in terms of everything that's played out, and most importantly, now that the fuel prices or the crude prices are returning to what they were before the war between Iran and Israel, what could happen in terms of how much you pay at the pumps should the government decide to introduce that 1 cedi fuel levy. And so this is where we are at. The conflict plus that 1 cedi levy in July would have had you paying roughly 14 cedis, 20 pesos per liter for the fuel. But the conflict without the levy, had it escalated, then you'll be paying around 13 cedis, 20 pesos. But with all of that out of the way, no conflict, which escalating now not a thing of concern, crude prices returning to normalcy, then we're seeing in the regions of 11 cedis, 80 pesos per liter for you in terms of how much you will be paying in the month of July. If you want to take it to August, it will drop further to say 11 cedis, 50 pesos. That is, if the conflict or the de-escalation which has started, the ceasefire and the conversations about peace and a truce continues, and the government introduces that levy, then you'll be roughly paying 11 cedis, 50 pesos for your fuel. And so that's just it for you by way of expectations. Now we know that crude prices are returning to the pre-conflict eras. So what it means is that, is this paving the way for government to introduce that 1 cedi levy? We wait to see, but that's it for you by the way of By the Numbers.
Across the region, King Mswati III of Eswatini continues his 5-day state visit to Ghana with a high-profile engagement in Kumasi today. The monarch is set to address the National House of Chiefs and later hold a crucial meeting with the Asantehene Tunfosetu II. The king's visit underscores the strengthening of ties between Eswatini and Ghana. We'll connect now with Ibrahim Abubakar, our Ashanti region correspondent. Ibrahim, what else can you report?
Well, Kamini, this visit, I would say, isn't just diplomatic. It is a reaffirmation of centuries-old connection between the Asante Kingdom and also Eswatini. That's why just after the king is done engaging the National House of Chiefs, he will hold a private talk with the Asantehene to discuss about so many issues, including tourism and even economic potential. It's a busy day for him today. Like I said, after here, he will move and engage with the Asantini. Then you will proceed to the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly, where they will hold some bilateral talk. Currently, they are just talking about traditional governance and also Pan-African unity. That's the address he's giving to the National House of Chiefs. But if you look at the economic links, they are looking at potential areas of cooperation, including the areas of tourism, cultural exchange, and also trade. And that's what they will be discussing maybe in the next 5 days.
I see. Are there any special activities aside these meetings?
Well, exactly. So after today, there will be a grand debate at the Menchia Palace where all the chiefs in the Ashanti region will converge at the Royal Parade Ground, and they will hold that special debate. Then from there, he will also be touring the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology and also serve as the special guest of honor at their congregation. So basically, like I said, from Menchia Palace, you also go to KMA where they will have some bilateral talks to see where they will be able to trade and see how it will be beneficial to both Eswatini and Ghana as a whole.
We know prior to his visits, there were citywide announcements that King Mswati III was coming. The Otumfo had encouraged the Ashanti people to be of their best behavior. He being there, do people even know? Do they care at all?
Well, you speak to, I would say, 10 people, at least 4 to 5 are aware of his visit because the entire city has been decorated by his posters, and there has been an announcement. There has been a lot of cleanup exercise ahead of his coming. So, the city has been beautified in a way. So, there is an indication that someone is coming. So, like I said, you speak to 10 people, at least 4 of them are aware of his visit, and they are looking forward to see what will come out of his visit, especially when it comes to the royal dialogue and what it will mean for culture and also economic collaboration for both Eswatini and specifically the Asante Kingdom, I would say the Ashanti region as a whole.
I see. We'll leave it here. Thank you so much for talking to us. Ibrahim Abubakar is our Ashanti region correspondent who tells us that it would appear people have knowledge of the presence of King Mswati III of Eswatini in the Ashanti region.
Let's end with the head of projects at the Birth and Death Registry, Emmanuel Butri, who's challenged the Civil and Local Government Staff Association of Ghana, CLOGSAG, over its repeated calls for strike following the appointment of the new registrar. His comment comes amid the latest strike directive issued by CLOGSAG in early June in response to grievances raised against the newly appointed registrar.
CLOGSAG had instructed all registry staff to embark on an industrial action, citing what they described as the government's failure to address concerns regarding the newly appointed registrar. However, after a meeting with the National Labour Authority, NLA, the strike was declared illegal and workers were asked to return to work. Head of projects at the Birth and Death Registry, Emmanuel Butri, questioned the union's actions and called for clarity on a similar case during the previous administration, when a legal challenge was eventually withdrawn without conclusion.
It's repeating itself again. Another appointment, the same issues are coming up again. Can CLOGSAG tell us what happened to the first case they took to court? What really had transpired at the court? Was there a conclusion on the issue? Because I believe there were some conclusions when the first appointment went to court. This thing wouldn't have happened.
He lamented the impact of the strike on their jobs, citing indiscipline among staff.
I think that strike is not the best solution, a way to go. We should use the legal system to resolve, because most of the issues that we are talking about are more of a legal, within the legal domain, because as we speak now, the crisis that is going on is breeding a lot of indiscipline in the office. It's really damaging the image of the office. And as well as damaging the image of Ghana on the international platform. We are in June and the percentage coverage is below 50%.
Despite the controversy, visits to the registry's offices at Shiashi and Kimbu showed routine activity, with staff at post and services being rendered to the public as usual.
From us this afternoon, here on News Central, I am Mawina Egbeta.
I thought you were going to say as usual. That's it from us. I'm Kameni Amano. Next is the afternoon show. We'll see you same time tomorrow. Bye-bye.